Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at my brand new P30 L. And before we get this video started, I want to give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, which is of course Seal One. Seal One has been graciously supporting me here on Firearm Freedom, and I cannot thank them enough. They make a wide variety of firearms cleaning and maintenance supplies. Primarily, they're most well known for their CLP. They have a non-toxic CLP liquid and paste. It smells great and it cleans great, and it's kind of nice because you don't have to worry about any sort of nasty fumes in a small environment or anything like that. They also do have aerosol versions. They even have bow care products and pretty much everything in between. I really enjoy the relationship that I have with Seal One because I've been using this stuff for years. And if you want to pick up some Seal One for yourself, you can click the link down in the description and also use the code FF-25 at checkout. That's FF-25 at checkout, and it will save you 25% off of your order. The P30 L. I am pretty excited about this video, like I am most other HK videos, okay? I can't help it. I try not to fan out hard on HK guns, but I just do. I'm drawn to them. I can't help it. You know, everyone's got a little bit of firearm autism, and for me, it comes down to H&K, and that's just kind of what I was drawn to. I try to be as unbiased as possible, but I really do favor HK, and it's just one of those companies that I just like. Yes, I suck and they hate me, but I cannot stop buying their guns. So I originally had a standard P30 LEM variation. This one is a P30 V3, and the V3 is essentially their standard action. So it is going to be single, double action with the decocker. Nothing special in this. There is also not a manual safety, which I would prefer on the P30. I still have my standard full-size P30 LEM. Nothing wrong with that gun, but I was always rather drawn to the P30 L. And no, it was not because of John Wick. To be honest with you, it's one of those things where all the Terran tactical guns in that movie, I know I'm going to get hate for this, but they just don't excite me that much. And yes, the P30L was cool, but I was always drawn to the P30L outside of the John Wick things, and for me, the P30L was just always a very attractive pistol. I love the standard P30, and you can see there's really not that much of a size difference. We're looking at pretty much about a ½ inch, realistically. There's not that much going on here that is different, but for whatever reason, the P30L just has a vibe to it, as does most of the stuff that I've been reviewing these past few weeks, and I just saw it come through the gun shop that I work at. Actually, we got two in, and the FF Pocket Gunsmith had one of them, and he grabbed that one, and I'm like, oh man, if you didn't grab that, I would have. And then he's like, but wait, there's one more that we got in. And we actually did get in two. And I'm like, you know what? I need to further expand my HK pistol collection. So let me go ahead and pick up a P30L on top of my regular P30. Now, I always say this, but the P30 is everything that I believe the VP9 should have been when it came to grip texture. That's one of the first things you guys are going to notice about the P30 when you pick it up compared to the VP9. I kind of find it ironic, but I compare it to like a 720p version on the VP9, and then this is just like 1080 or 4K. If you hold the guns side by side, you can see exactly what I mean. Now this P30 has this incredible texture. I don't know why HK decided to use this texturing on the P30s and not on the VP9s, even though they have the exact same grip panels and everything like that for the most part. It is so much better, and it's interesting just how different the grip feels on the P30. The VP9 seriously does melt in your hand. It's a great gun. I still carry my VP9 without a doubt. However, the grip, as far as the P30, when you pick this gun up, it truly puts the VP9 to shame, just with how it feels in the hand. And that's how I felt with every P30 that I've picked up, minus the SKs. It's also rather interesting that on the P30 SKs, they went with that same 720p VP9 texturing for whatever reason. So the VP9 texturing isn't bad, but the P30s is just on another level. So the texturing immediately when you pick up the P30 L is phenomenal. Now this is the standard variation that comes with the luminescent paint sights. What that means is that when they're charged with light, like from all these camera lights here, and then you go ahead and try to cover them up, they will glow, and sunlight is going to charge them even more, and the more that they get charged, the brighter that they are going to glow. And if you're shooting this outside all day and then you go ahead and holster it, it is glowing real bright. However, when they are not charged, so in other words, if you've been carrying the gun all day, you are going to notice that it's just regular paint sights at that point. So for me, I don't necessarily find that luminescent paint sights really matter at all, because if you were to carry the gun, it's kind of a point that is null and void, because it's not going to help you at any point you actually need it. So for me, luminescent paint doesn't really do much. This is potentially going to go into a defensive battle belt role, which we'll talk about in a bit here in the future. So I may switch these sights out, I may not. I do prefer the blacked out rear on any sort of defensive pistol that I have, but it's not the end of the world. It's not a deal breaker. On the standard variation, not the LE variation of the P30 L, you're going to get two 17-round magazines. That's typical. Anytime you see an HK pistol, usually with night sights, it is probably going to signify the LE version and is more than likely going to come with 3 magazines instead of just 2. When we're talking HKs, that actually is a deal, because these magazines are not cheap. They're coming in about 50 bucks a pop. It generally can be had as low as 45 sometimes, but most of the time you're up towards 50. The original VP9s and P30s came with 15-round magazines. The new ones are coming with 17 in the exact same size. Everyone always used to feel that because of the magazine size, it was definitely able to fit more than 15, and they just kind of stopped it at 15, so HK decided to go to the full 17 in the same size, so that is nice to have. This being a V3, as we talked about earlier, you are going to have the single action pull, so I'll give you the single action trigger pull there. Good bit of spongy take up. You'll hit a semi-distinct wall, keep on pulling, and there's your brake. Reset all the way out there. Good bit of spongy take up again, and then your brake. The double action trigger is nothing to write home about, and there's your brake. And on all of these P30s, a lot of the time I'll experience a little bit of rubbing on that cutout there in the trigger guard, and that's just the way that my finger placement is. Sometimes, like right there, I'm getting a little bit of rubbing. Tiny bit of rubbing on there. It's a little bit uncomfortable. During shooting, I don't feel that as much, as I'm just dry firing. But on the V3s, you still have the decocker, which is one of the better decockers out there, in my opinion, because it is right where you would normally place your thumb for reholstering the pistol. So it is that little lever there, and you're going to go ahead and pull that down towards the ground, and it's going to decock that pistol and make it safe to carry. They do have P30s with a manual safety option. You can see you have the cutout there for it. Not a fan of those at all. On the P30 grip, it ruins it. There are not many pistols out there where I would say a safety is so bad that it almost ruins the gun for me. The P30 would be one of those guns. It is very much in the way, and you go to grab the pistol, and right now it is, again, it melts in my hand. I mean, it's just perfect in every way. But with that safety, it for me, in my hands, it digs right into my knuckle on both sides, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. So I cannot stand the safety on the P30s, and I would just flat out not buy one that had the manual safety on it, especially when it's completely unnecessary on this gun because of the way that the decocker is set up, and it is, of course, single double action. You guys have seen on my channel before a video about the LEM trigger from HK. Many people would think that this is a double action only trigger, which it is, but it's also kind of not, because basically a normal double action only trigger is going to give you a horrendous trigger pull each and every time. Now, if this gun has not had the slide reciprocated, so I just pulled the trigger there, and now, of course, I did not rack the slide back, it does have a very, very heavy trigger pull, and that kind of gets people a little confused if they pick it up out of the case and don't clear it first or whatever. But if you rack the slide, which is how it would be anytime you chambered around, you have a very nice, almost single stage trigger pull. And you're going to have that repeatable trigger pull each and every time, and it is still actually safe to carry it in this position because it is still this pseudo weird double action only setup with some German space magic thrown in there. The LEM trigger is nice, the trigger is nice and repeatable, but what kills me about it is that little dingus floating around in the back, which is your hammer. Every time you go to pull it and you're resetting it, you just see this kind of number the whole time, and it's a little distracting. You want to not pay attention to it, but you're looking through the sights, and this little guy is just like giving you a little hello there every single time. So I'm not a huge fan of the LEM anymore for that reason. When we're talking trigger and shootability on the P30 L, I'm a little indifferent. This thing shoots great. I got awesome groups with it. At 5 yards, it was like one hole in front of the other. Then I backed out to 10. Opened up a little bit. I think I could definitely pull it in tighter. And then we walked all the way back at 5 yard increments out to about 36 yards. And still my group sizes stayed the exact same out to those distances, which you guys are probably going to be seeing now in the B-roll. So I had no complaints about accuracy. Transitions from target to target were also excellent. The slide is still moving fast enough that it's not going to be giving you any problems as far as too slow and you're outrunning it or anything like that, or a kind of bizarre sluggish recoil. What killed the shootability for me was the trigger. And it's kind of well known in the P30s that are out there that their standard V3 triggers are subpar. The double action is okay, it's not terrible. The single action is just weird. That's the only way I can explain it. The break is very spongy, and what kills the fast shooting for me is the reset. It is very hard to bring the trigger out to the wall, once again, because of that weird spongy take-up. I go ahead and pull the trigger, great, the gun cycles, and I go out to the wall, but it sends me out to this really weird limbo where I got a bunch of take-up again, and it's very, very spongy. So that becomes a big problem when you're going to shoot fast. And on top of that, you know, I don't know what it is. The polymer triggers in these, it feels like a little weak. It's just weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like the USP. It's not like, it feels weird. Their plastic trigger, it needs some work. And there are some trigger kits out there. Just, of course, typical HK, be aware if you go into the fire control group and you're not an HK certified armorer, it does void the warranty. So take that for what you will, but there are trigger kits out there. I may go about adding a trigger kit to this in the future. Now, aside from the weird fast shooting issues, and you guys will notice that as I'm transitioning, there were a few good flinches throughout the B-roll, and that's because, again, I was having a really hard time reading that reset and reading the break. So you're going to transition, and it's like, whoop, you feel like it's gonna go, but there's take up. It's a little bit to get used to. Now, at the end of the range day, I was fine. It had been a minute since I'd shot my last P30, and again, it takes a second. It is definitely not a VP9 trigger. The VP9 trigger is phenomenal. So in that aspect, the VP9 I think would actually beat out the P30 without a doubt in the trigger department. When it comes to the overall reliability of the gun, of course, I had absolutely no issues. This first impressions range day, we shot 250 rounds through the gun. Absolutely no hiccups, which is what I would expect. The P30 is incredibly reliable, and usually you're not going to run into any issues. Recoil is pleasant. There is not as much muzzle flip, it feels like, compared to the VP9. I could be wrong on that because it's really kind of up in the air. They're both very, very similar, but it feels slightly less in the muzzle flip department than the VP9. You got a really nice recoil reduction system in here, and I will say, as far as long-term reliability and battle-ready reliability, I would give it to the P30. The P30 is so much more simple on the internals compared to the VP9. The VP9 has so much going on in the back in the fire control group area. It is insane. The way that their striker system works, there's a lot of little tiny springs and moving parts, and to me, that screams way down the road parts breaking. Now, those parts are replaceable, but with the P30, there's really not much going on in there, and there's not that much to break. There's also not that much going on in the slide. Being a hammer-fired gun, you basically just have your firing pin sitting there that the hammer is going to hit. It is a very kind of well-proven design that I think is going to stand the test of time longer than the VP9. So with all of that into consideration and the fact that it's hammer-fired, it has a stronger spring and I think is a little bit better in adverse environments compared to the VP9, which has been the complaint about the VP9 in the past, is that the spring is just a little weaker, so we're talking like nasty, crazy mud test environments. It may not do as well as other HK pistols. Now for an EDC gun, I don't really have any issues with that, and I've put my gun through the test that I think any EDC roll should pass, and it passed it with flying colors. With the P30, going to a battle belt gun is a lot more interesting to me. Now, the one downfall and the only reason why I don't carry my P30s is because holsters are so annoying to find, and I really don't know why. There are no holsters out there. I believe Legacy Firearms, I might be getting that name wrong, but I just found out about them. They make a sidecar style holster for that, and they also make a retention holster for the P30, both of which I might be trying to get my hands on in the future. But other than that, there are no options out there. You don't see anything from T-Rex Arms, Tier 1, QVO. It is just kind of a weird gun, and I don't know why, because it's very, very popular. A lot of people have it. I know a lot of people want to carry it, so it's just, again, a little bit bizarre. When it comes to a battle belt gun, I love the fact that magazines are the exact same as my VP9, and all of these magazines I have stupid amounts of at the house. So I have no issues throwing this in a battle belt roll. Manual of arms is going to be the exact same. Reloads are the same. Everything is the same. And shootability is very, very similar. This one, I think, is just a little bit better of a battle pistol. So for those reasons, I'm going to be figuring out how I can get this in a battle belt roll or kind of like my go-to-war pistol roll, because that's exactly where I think this is going to sit in. I did mess around with this pistol and my T-Rex Arms Ragnarok SD holster that fits off of the X300. It's not my favorite holster, but it does actually fit just fine. So that's something that you guys might be seeing me rocking in the upgrades video on the P30, which should be coming very soon. That is going to wrap up this video on the P30 L. If you guys have any other questions about this pistol or anything else on the channel, please throw them down below in the comment section, and I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to the description for the links to support the channel, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.